Welcome to the Data Literacy Show, the podcast that helps you build, measure, and level up your data and AI literacy. I'm Alli Torban, the Senior Data Literacy Advocate here at Data Literacy.
And I'm Ben Jones, co-founder and CEO of Data Literacy. Today, we're going to tackle a super practical question. It comes up not just in data and AI, but in any kind of learning endeavor, really, which is that what's the best way, to train a team? So we get this question all the time with our clients. Companies want to increase their team's data and AI skills, but they're not really sure maybe what format will work best for their specific situation. So we're talking on-demand videos, we're talking cohort-based courses. What about live workshops? Should it be in person or virtual or some combination of those? We have a whole buffet, and we'll probably come back to this meal kind of analogy a couple times as we go through it.
Right. It's a lot of options, right? You can mix and
Yeah.
match in so many different ways for how you're delivering training to your team. And there is no one single best way for every single person. It really depends on your goals, your budget, your team size, how each individual likes to learn. Everybody likes to learn slightly differently. So today we're going to share our most popular training formats and then also the pros and cons for each one that we have seen based on training thousands of people. So you can lean on some of our expertise on that.
Yep, exactly. So, let's start with, I think, probably the most cost affordable way, which is on-demand courses. So, what are we talking about here? Well, it's a pre-recorded lesson. Maybe it has instructional videos, maybe it has exercises and quizzes. What are people doing? They're kind of watching and going through these lessons by themselves anytime and anywhere. So the pro, of course, is that they're very, very flexible. You can scale them to thousands of employees without needing any kind of live instructor. And it can be a great option for busy teams and obviously for asynchronous learners where people need to learn on their own time or their own schedule. And that really can come in handy, let's say if you have multiple time zones. And I think that could be practically a good option for you. I've also found personally that they can be useful for maybe if you just need to learn something really basic, like a tool or a skill. Let's say I want to get started with SQL. I don't need to have some guru come and visit the site, and give me some inspiring lecture. I just need to kind of learn the basics. And so I think an on-demand course can be useful for that kind of learning in data and AI.
Yeah, there's one way to press the button. There's one way for that
Right.
syntax, right? For SQL. So you don't need someone to come in and teach you the nuances. It's just I need to
Right.
know exactly how to do it. It's black and white,
Yeah.
easy peasy. You can watch some videos for that. So yeah, on demand is really great for those cases. In terms of the cons for on demand, we have seen that it can be hard to get people to engage with them and actually complete them. So it's really helpful to build in some sort of accountability because if the learner is on their own, we all know this, you get busy, you get stuck, or you don't really know how this is going to apply to me. So you just push it aside and get back to your day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. I kind of think of it sort of like the fast food. If we're going to use this food analogy, to me, throwing an on-demand library to your team members, that's kind of like having them have fast food. Of course, it may be useful in a pinch, and we all have fast food from time to time, but you certainly want to build your entire diet around it because, like Ali mentioned, some of these cons can be detractors. It's not going to be as nourishing and perhaps as like educational as you want it to be. You're not going to really have the time to cover a lot of the nuances and get into the human side of it. But at the same time, again, useful in some cases. I would just be careful how often I go that route, just like
Right.
with fast food. But let's talk about ways to get more out of them. Let's say you're going that route. You're going to be using on-demand training for your team. Maybe it's just for you. Maybe it could be just you and your laptop. So here are some things that I think will help you get the most out of it. So number one, you really have to start by setting a learning goal for yourself before you begin, right? What am I trying to get out of this? What skill do I want to walk away with? And that's going to give you a reason to keep on going.
Hmm.
So even better, we've seen some research that indicates that if you're able to meet with your supervisor ahead of time, tell them what you're going to do and what you're going to learn, and come up with that goal together and really have them hold you accountable. And you're going to also get their buy-in. And that can be a great way to challenge yourself to motivate when maybe you get sidetracked or maybe you hit some kind of a busy period and the DIY training falls by the wayside. So set
Hmm.
that goal, get other people to buy in and hold you accountable. Number two would be just really block the time on your calendar. Treat it like a meeting, treat it like a project. go into your calendar, put those holds in place, and have reminders sent to yourself. So even 30 minutes a week, I think you can keep that momentum going. So,
Yeah.
be mindful about putting that on your calendar. And then lastly, it can be great to pair up with a buddy or a colleague. So maybe if it's not just you taking the course, but someone else is going through it as well and you're working with them, then you can do a little weekly check-in to maybe kind of tell them what mattered the most to you, what applied the most to you, talk through what you've learned. And it can make it feel like less of a solo endeavor and more of something that you're going through maybe with someone else.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful for me to know that someone else is kind of going along the same path and they're going to be looking, am I still there? Am I still there?
Right.
It's easy for me to be like, oh, if I'm keeping a promise to myself, I'm easy for me to be like, oh, but I have something else important to do. But if someone else is looking for me, make sure I'm right next to them, I'll be trying to keep up a little bit more. So even though on demand is technically solo, you taking the courses yourself, it you don't have to feel like you're on an island. You can try to set it up a little bit so that you have some people there who can give you some structure and accountability so that the training will still be impactful for your day-to-day work. And the on-demand stuff is really great for, like we said, when you're trying to learn a new tool, maybe just the
Yep.
basics on how to use it. And
Exactly.
if you want to take it to the next level, I would say our
Yeah.
next training modality would be live virtual training. So these are
Hmm.
things like Zoom sessions with some sort of expert or facilitator. They're guiding you through the material. A pro for this is that you get the real time interaction, right? So someone's speaking to you, you can raise your hand, you can ask questions. A lot of times we incorporate live exercises in our trainings, and then people can get feedback on them immediately.
Good old
And
Slido.
yeah, we use Slido so people can answer questions and participate in polls. It makes it really
Hmm.
easy and adds a lot of fun energy too.
I think so.
It's
Yeah.
really hard to get energy flowing in between screens nowadays. So
Hmm. Hmm.
this that helps people stay engaged and also thinking, applying the things that they just learned. And what I do love about Slido too is that
Hmm.
it helps people who aren't even strong personalities. Like a lot of times, people don't want to raise their hand and be speaking in front of a group, asking their questions. They can kind of ask anonymously and just through typing it on the computer, and they can still be part of the conversation, which is amazing.
Yeah, you really kind of get the chance to pull the entire room. So
Hmm.
you don't just have one person dominating.
Yeah.
And it kind of break up the monotony. I think, no one really wants a lecture these days. I don't think, I mean, we can listen to long podcasts. We seem to have developed, or many people have developed a habit of that. But when it's a training course, I think I've seen very few people love to get an hour-long lecture. It's just sort of rare. As adults, we like to participate in this learning experience.
Yeah.
So on the con side of live virtual training, right, there's some drawbacks to it as well. Maybe we can think of it like the fast casual restaurant. So it's a little nicer, a little better, higher
Hmm.
quality, and still not super expensive. And you can get some good economies of scale there, especially with virtual. You don't have to pay for travel and all the rest, but it can still be kind of hard to schedule, getting people together across different time zones. And I think what we're all dealing with is a bit of Zoom fatigue, so let's be
Yeah.
honest, right after a full day of meetings, adding one other Zoom session onto people's calendars can be a bit of a tough sell and can feel a little daunting sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I like to ask people when we're doing these live virtual trainings is to see if they can put their camera on if
Yeah.
possible, because it does make you feel like, okay, I'm actually here with my team. I see other people paying attention. I want to pay attention. And it feels less draining to me personally, too, when I can see other people's faces. If I'm just staring at these black squares, it
Right.
does make it
Yeah.
feel like it's sucking my energy and it
Yeah.
can make it feel more tiring.
Yeah, you want to get that interaction, that human touch. I mean, that's really why you're paying a little bit more for a live virtual session is that there is, as we talked about before, that kind of opportunity for a human being to be there and walk you through it. And so the more you can enhance that human connection, I think the better and the more value you'll get out of a live virtual training. So let's kind of go up and scale even more to, let's say, like a higher quality, perhaps even higher cost kind of an option. And that would be an in-person workshop. So we still have an instructor. Instead of being live and virtual, it's live and on site. So the trainer's coming to you. Maybe you're going to a place where everyone is not necessarily on site in your company's location. It could just be maybe at some other location, but you're getting together and you want that face to face interaction. So on the pros side, we have better engagement, no doubt. When everyone is there in the room, yes, there's a habit to look at your phone, but in general, you're face to face, people are in the room, and it's a lot easier to maintain, I think, a high level of engagement
Yeah.
throughout all the session. And it's easier to kind of focus on cutting out distractions, um, and even building relationships stronger than if you're meeting only virtually. I think people tend to retain more in this format. Maybe our brain kind of has more to think about and build memories around being in the room,
Mm.
the sights, the smells, the tactile component of it. I mean, all of that's there, so it just enhances the learning, I think. So in the virtual session, you maybe fade in or out because you're multitasking.
Hmm.
But when you're sitting there in person, it kind of forces you a little more to engage and pay attention, and I think in a good way. So those I would say are the pros of in-person workshops. I really love doing them. Of course, when COVID hit, they sort of went away entirely, and they've started to come back a little bit here or there. But you do have to pay for travel, probably. Unless the person
Right.
happens to be in the same town as you. So how about the con side? You're going to help us with that, Ellie. Tell me what would be the drawback of just paying for trainers to come on site all the time.
Yeah, the biggest con is that it's really expensive. And you're looking at adding the trainer's travel. Maybe if you have to reserve the venue, that might be an extra cost, the food, your time, coordinating it all.
Yeah,
And also, it takes everybody offline. So a pro is that people can't multitask, but a con is also that people
yeah,
can't multitask. So,
yeah,
those emails that you might be doing on the side of listening to a virtual training, you really cannot do that. And you're gone for half a day, and you're not be able
yeah,
to catch up on emails unless there's some sort of break. But also, another kind of pro I can slide in there is that
yeah.
you do get those times where while you're getting food or coffee
Hmm.
or on a quick
Hmm.
break, you can have quick discussions with your team
Yeah.
or the facilitator, and you can be asking them specific things like, "Oh, we've done this in the past. What did you think about that?" Or make connections about your own team's work. So that's a really
Yeah.
valuable thing that you can't really get when it's virtual.
Yeah, exactly. And even just the body language. I mean, when the
Mm,
trainer says something and you can kind of feel in the room that people really take note of that
yes.
just by the way they're sitting or their facial features. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we communicate to each other a lot when we're in the same room in subtle ways that we don't always necessarily think about. But I do think you get this richness when you're all together.
You're right.
So,
Like when it's virtual and you see someone, might be looking confused, it's hard to think, are they confused because of what I just said, or are they confused
mhm.
because they're reading an email, something that's not related. But when it's in
Right.
person, it's like, oh, okay, I need to keep
Yeah.
talking and expand on that more because people are looking confused about what I just said.
I think you're right. It gives a trainer that opportunity to really see what's connecting, see what's landing, see what's confusing,
Hmm.
and just continue to just make sure they're responding, to the trainee, and not just talking at them. It's harder to talk at people when you're in a room. I think it's easy to do on Zoom, easier anyway.
Yes.
And so we don't want to do that. So, if you're going to make that investment, you're going to bring people together, you're going to bring in a trainer. I think that you pointed out this earlier, Allie, but I think it's really important, which is that you want to build in time for reflection. You want to build in time for discussion and even application.
Hmm.
Um, of course, give them breaks to get caught up maybe and prevent them from having a huge backlog. So really work the schedule to give time for breaks and reflection and application, little breakout sessions and things like that. Even a simple little debrief like saying, "Hey, what's one thing you'll do differently this week?" And that can really help people turn those learnings into something that's really applicable to them. I think it can make the learning feel less like some isolated event and more like part of their weekly workflow.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps solidify, okay, I just learned this and this is how I'm going to use it.
Right.
Okay, next we have hybrid learning. So as you can
Right.
imagine,
Right.
that is hybrid is bringing two things together. So this is a combination of the on-demand, taking an
Hmm.
on-demand course and live training. So you get the flexibility of learning things in the pre-recorded lessons, but then you also get support of live sessions. So this could look like somewhat like for us, we have on-demand courses for, let's say, our data literacy fundamentals course. So people can watch the content and then maybe we can meet one time or multiple times over the course of a month to have them apply it and be able to ask questions, maybe some nuances of how it might apply to their work. So you're using kind of getting the best of both worlds. And that's one
Yep.
of the big
Yep.
pros.
Yep.
And the learners can absorb the basics on their own time. So that's the benefit of the on demand. But then they can come together for discussions, coaching, questions and answers with the expert, and it can really reinforce what they just learned while
Mhm.
they're also being as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we love this approach. It tends to be a little more cost effective because you're not necessarily paying for the trainer to walk them through 100% of the topics.
Mm-hmm.
You're just using them probably for fewer overall hours to reinforce the learning, as you pointed out. So, this is a great way, I think, to get maybe a little bit of customization in there, a little bit of human interaction with the trainer, but also to have some of the scalability and cost effectiveness of giving them an on-demand course and getting a lot out of that as well. So the learning is partly theirs, partly a team-based thing. So I like it. We tend to recommend it quite a lot. But there are some cons, right? So on the one hand, it does take more planning and facilitation than just giving them on-demand courses.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no one to keep the rhythm going, then learners can drift off the course. So the times we've seen this work well, what we're going to see is there's someone like some kind of a manager or a learning and development leader, some kind of a champion. They're going to own the training plan. They're going to share kind of, testimonials of others going through the training. So what are they doing? They're making sure everyone has access to everything, making sure everyone's following along, they're
Mm-hmm.
following up, they're, keeping connected. And so there's someone sort of shepherding the learning process, this hybrid learning process, right? Helping people kind of know when to, what they need to get done and by when, and
Yes.
just keeping those reminders going, keeping, sometimes as doing right now with the clients, things occur during the schedule that require adjustments. So, we had one client just this last week, so they had to move some sessions around because of a team lunch that got planned. And so we had to kind of push out the training a bit and shuffle the schedule. And so it was really nice for us because there was someone at the client side that really owned all of that. And so they were just checking with us really about, our availability, but they were the ones kind of checking in with the team members, the trainees, what else was happening within the organization. So from a trainer's point of view, we love that because we were able to just really quickly and easily make that adjustment and keep right on moving and not have it be too disruptive. But
Right.
that does take effort. So, right,
Yes. Yeah, yeah. You're not hopping on the training and then realize there's only two people there and
right.
then realize,
That's
oh,
happened. That's
everyone else
happened.
is at this other lunch. I'm like, oh, that
Right.
would be great if someone
Yes.
on their side was able to communicate that and focus it so that you don't lose that time. And it's helpful to have someone
Yeah.
there setting expectations with the learners too. So you should be
Right.
going through this training before this date. When we have the live training, this is what we expect of you. It's a full-time job and we know that it's hard. But if you are at a bigger company, you're investing a lot of training in a lot of money in the training, then you want to
Hmm.
make sure people are taking it, they're using it,
Yeah.
it's making a
Yeah.
difference in their day to day. So that's why we really love
Yep.
hybrid because the lecture part, the learning the content, someone can fit that into their own schedule. And then when they have the shorter session with the expert live, they can be asking questions and
Yeah. Yeah.
the nuances of how they might apply that to their own work.
Right. Exactly. So, okay, next up. So, I think when we learn, we're social creatures, right? So we like to learn, just like meals, we like to go out to have meals together. We talked about meals and whether you're going to fast food or fast casual or
Hmm.
someplace really nice. You love to go out with friends, right? So I think this is true in learning as well. Not all the time. Some people really want to just focus and learn something themselves, and that's great and that's fine. But in a corporate setting, using cohort-based learning can be useful. So what are we talking about here? Well, very simply, there's a wave or a group, and they're going through the material together on some set schedule. So we're starting on this date. We should wrap it up by that date. So what do we have in terms of pros here? This built-in accountability. You're part of a group. You want to keep pace. You also can build momentum together. You're going to have lots of opportunities to learn from your peers. And we found that people often feel, more motivated when they're not learning alone. So
Hmm.
I think that those are some really compelling pros to cohort-based learning. Allie, what about the cons?
Yeah, it's less flexible, obviously, because you're all starting on this one wave and y'all gotta ride
Yeah,
the wave
you're
together. And if
locked
you miss
in,
it, yep,
right?
you gotta wait for
Hmm.
the next cohort, right? And also, if you are in the cohort, if you miss one of the weeks, for example, it could be hard to catch up. Then you gotta double up the next week. So maybe if you
Yeah,
go on vacation or you're out sick, it can be a little bit hard to keep up. So it requires more commitment than on demand. Someone has to put it together and manage the cohorts too, kind of like
Yeah,
with the hybrid, someone is having to manage the cohorts. So that can be
yeah,
a little bit of a time commitment as well for someone
it
else.
is. Yeah, for sure. It's taking up someone's time. You have most likely some kind of a coordinator on site, like we talked about with the hybrid model. With a cohort, they really are truly the shepherd. They're kind of leading everybody through the program together. And so that does take some time to dedicate to doing that well. So I definitely feel like it's better in a lot of ways. You certainly are going to get higher um, participation rates than if you just throw the course out there,
Right.
for sure, because people are in it together. And, summertime can be particularly tricky, at least, if everyone's in the same hemisphere. We just
Yeah.
came off of a summer season where we definitely had some clients that, needed to record a few sessions because people were out on vacation. So,
Hmm.
that's going to happen at certain times of the year, holidays as well, maybe. So, a recommendation for you all, if you're going to be running a cohort for your team, or even if you're participating in one, I would say it's also nice to have some kind of a shared space. Could be a Slack channel, some kind of a discussion board where people can ask these questions and share takeaways, cheer each other on between sessions, really build a sense of community around the group going together through this training program. And, I think that that really can make cohort learning really memorable and really fun.
Yeah, you're all in there together experiencing the same things. If you do miss a session, you could post the recording in the
Right.
shared space so that people can catch up if they missed it and they're not having to dig through a bunch of things and ask people, what did I miss? What did I miss? So it's really,
Exactly.
really easy to stay together and kind of add a social aspect to the
I think
training.
so. Yep.
Okay, the next one is project-based training. So this was is one of our favorite types of training
Yes.
modalities, and
Especially with
this is
data.
yeah, especially around data
Hmm.
because it's this is where the learners apply what they've learned to some sort of real world project,
Yeah.
ideally using your own data. So if you pick a project and let's say for data storytelling, you have a project that maybe a presentation you did last month, for example, and you're going to go through our data storytelling course and you're going to redo it based on our framework. So you're really familiar with the data, you know what you want to get across, but you're going to create a data story based on your own stuff, but with our framework. You can really see how it gets transformed throughout the training, and then you have something that you can present at the end. So it's very, very meaningful. So that's one of the pros is
Yep.
that the learning really sticks because you're doing something that
Yep.
is meaningful to your own work, and you often get a real business result
Right.
out of it.
Exactly. What you want to avoid is someone going through a course and then getting to the end of it and saying, wait a minute, how does that apply to me? How do I actually
Hmm.
use any of this? So with the project-based training, it's built in. They're actually doing the work, ideally in their own scenario with their own job responsibilities and getting a result right away. So you're going to get that value, that ROI is kind of built into the training itself. So, as you mentioned, we love doing this with data storytelling. There's nothing like presenting your own data to really make you retain and learn the method. So, we think that using your own data is huge. I can give you some great data sets that are out there, and that's fine. Sometimes that can be fun to play with. But when you're actually presenting your own data to your actual audience with the goal that you have in mind,
Hmm.
then that is really going to help guide you through each step, and you're going to really remember it. It's going to stick. And then also, as you said, you get the benefit at the end where you actually have a fully formed data story already right there, and it's tailored to something that actually matters to you. And there's nothing that replaces that. So I'm a big believer in project-based training in data and AI, and I think that we learn by doing, and that's important to give people the opportunity to do that in these training courses.
Yeah, using your own data, having a project-based training, I feel like that's the gold standard of training. You
Right.
really get a lot out of it. But there are some cons.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
would
Let's talk
say,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I would say it would be better for smaller groups because it
Hmm.
does require a lot of feedback, coaching by some sort of facilitator expert who's giving the training. And it can take quite a bit more time than just one-off webinar. Like maybe if you are doing just a one multi-hour training. You can still do project-based, but it would definitely be you'd have to shift your expectations that by the end you're going to have something smaller. If you're trying to build a whole data story, that could take a series of weeks that you're creating this data story, or you could create a smaller data story in maybe the span of a week. But you do have to make sure that you give people time to actually be creating something. It does take more time. Like when we are doing this, the data storytelling workshop where we have people create things. We have office hours in between the
Yep.
courses, so the
Yep.
trainees can come in and say, "Okay, I'm wrestling with this problem. How do I get over this so they don't get stuck or fall behind." So that's it's just hard. It's hard and messy to be creating something by yourself with a trainer going alongside you. So it's going to take more time, and you're going to need more help. But like you said, Ben, there's nothing more rewarding or
Yeah.
useful.
I think that you get the bang for the buck,
Hmm.
but to your point, it is hard to scale it. And you do have to kind of bake in more time and more one-on-one kind of interactivity between
Hmm.
those who are doing these projects and carrying them through to fruition, and then as well as the trainer who can give them that feedback live in real time. So
Hmm.
it can be a little more costly, but I do often think at times the value just is justified. So okay, just like with meals, we talked about this analogy to eating. No one goes to fast food every time. At least I hope not. So, similarly with training, you don't have to just choose one format and then only use that all of the time, you know? So, you're going to have these kind of multiple effective styles. You can blend them together just like you would your diet. Some meals you eat at home, some meals you eat at a restaurant. Sometimes that's a fancy restaurant, sometimes not.
Hmm.
But I think you want to mix in a good combination of different modalities to get the result you want at a price you can afford. So I'm thinking about one of our specific clients. They're pretty much one of our favorite clients, I would
Hmm.
say, because they got a formula that I think works really well that we've been able to hone with them. So we've got a hybrid component to it. So there's some virtual, there's some on demand. We're working with them in cohorts. So we got groups of people starting in waves all together. And hey, guess what? There's a project involved. So they're actually presenting to their leadership. So you get a blend of all of those things at what I think we've been able to deliver in a pretty cost-effective way.
Hmm. Yeah, in this particular case, what they do is the learners are going to go and watch that week's on-demand lesson, and then we are come together for a 1 hour live session where they ask questions, they get feedback, they're working on their own data story, and then we also have a few optional office hours. So by the end, they are creating a full data story presentation, and then at the very last class, they're presenting in person to themselves, but usually virtually.
Yeah.
And special guests also come, like their direct manager, and they get to see the amazing progress and new skill that they have.
Yeah, you actually mentioned a small detail there that I want to accentuate. This idea that they go through, let's say, lesson one on their own first, and then when we come together in a group session, it's to talk about lesson one and what's
Mm,
applicable to them, as opposed to, and you might say this is a slight detail, but I think it's a big one, as opposed to us doing lesson one live with them, and then afterward they take the lesson on demand to
right.
just reinforce it or remind
Hmm.
them. I think that you get a lot more value when they come to that live session having already gone through the lesson because they've been thinking about what matters to them. You have much richer conversations. It's something to shoot for. Sometimes it can be hard to keep them on track, and keeping them one step ahead of where we're going to be in those live sessions, but that's the idea and that's the goal. And then what I've noticed, and which can be so rewarding for everyone, is these execs who come together on presentation day. They really love it because they've been the ones setting aside the budget, and so they're wondering to themselves, was this worth it? Well, they can
Yeah,
actually see like right there for themselves how much their team has grown, a new skill they've been able to
that's
build right
rare.
there. Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think that this model, this combination of hybrid cohort project based learning for data and AI, it's going to work really well for any team who wants some structure and some flexibility, but they want a really high participation rate with a really solid chance of getting real results. So I think that it's one we definitely recommend a lot. It doesn't have it's not perfect, right? And so a con here could be that, well, it's asking a lot of the learners.
Yeah.
They've got to commit, they've got to be involved, and they have skin in the game. They're going to be talking and presenting and showing what they learned. So, it's a higher bar than just throwing an on-demand course their way. and they're going to have to spend time on it. They're not going to be able to just skirt through it, right? So you can call that a con. I think that really you get you get out what you put in, and this
Yeah.
is asking team members to put a lot in. Maybe a challenge could be if they're already really overworked, or if the schedule is so slammed and they're working already way too many hours a week, then this is a tough path to ask them to go down because it does require their time and energy.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's no surprise to anyone that the more you put in, the more you get out. But
Yeah,
you
right,
do we do live in the real world, and we do realize that there are other constraints and
right.
deadlines that people are trying to meet that's outside of the training. But we do need to highlight that the more you put in, the more you get out.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so wrapping up, what is the best training format? Well, it depends. If you want more scalability, definitely on demand is something you're going to reach for. If you want connection and accountability, you might lean into live, virtual, or cohort-based trainings. And if you really want those applied results, see if you can do some sort of project-based training. And then the best of all worlds is if you find some way to combine them.
Yep. And if you're not sure what format is right for your team and you want to get going with data and AI literacy training, reach out to us. Our COO, Becky, is really great. She's worked with so many organizations over the last
Hmm.
7 or 8 years to really dial in the training for them. She'll hop on a call with you. She'll help you figure out the right mix and blend of different modalities and courses to get a great custom learning path for your learners.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Becky's great. She'll really help you figure it out. Great. Thanks for joining us on the Data Literacy Show. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.